I'd like to start by saying that I like to be known as someone who approaches most criticisms of this game with grace. Contrary to popular belief, the developers at Behavior do work hard to bring new content into DVD for us to enjoy. And I don't really like shitting on their work without due cause. Banter and fair criticisms are one thing. It's always good to be reasonable. I often find that many people in this community are more into lashing out at various parties than being constructive. All of that being said, I'm about to complain pretty hard about the state of this event, and I'm not just doing it because I want to be negative, but because I genuinely feel sad to report that I think Bloodmoon 2025, something that I have been really looking forward to, is currently kind of a huge disappointment. On the survivor end, 4 out of 7 generators are super happy, fun blood generators that require you to go fill up at the gas station and bring the canister over to load it up. It takes roughly 3, depending on pressure, to finish one, and it goes pretty fast. If you bring an event offering, you get some extra BP for being there to finish one. That's actually an important distinction. The event offering is personal, so the gen is knocked out while you're gone. You know, you get no extra BP. If you get up and you go get some more blood and somebody finishes it, oh, too bad. That, in my opinion, kind of sucks. But by the end of this event, the BP bonuses will still ensure that you're swimming in BP, so it's kind of beside the point. And on that note, Behavior has also stated that they are testing a 5 million blood point cap.
Now this is pod racing.
That rules. Even though I think it should have already been higher by this point, it still rules. Huge W, Behavior. Just, please, I beg you, keep it like this. I don't know what you mean by test, but I promise, I'm certain that the results of this test will be everyone is very happy with the blood point cap increase. So thank you, and please keep the 5 million in. I'm pretty sure I speak on behalf of the whole fucking community when I say that one. But back to the blood generators. I'd like to start by saying that I think, in theory, these are a great idea. In fact, I think this is a decent track towards developing separate objectives. Imagine if secondary objectives were introduced as a slight passive slowdown for survivors in matches. And what I mean by passive slowdown is that instead of having to complete 5 generators that are all just doing the same thing, like holding M1, imagine if each generator was different. Maybe 2 or 3 are different. And they come with different hazards and slight obstacles to completion. That would be kind of neat, right? That's the rough idea of these generators. There's travel time, a filling station at an RNG location that you need to run to, and running causes the blood to spill out at a slight rate. So there's like a resource loss to account for on top of the potential killer tracking, which admittedly factors in to much less, if I'm being real. More on the killer role, however, in all of this in a minute. I think as a start on a beta for a secondary objective, with actual tweaks, I don't mind this, and I think it's kind of cool. Imagine other kinds of secondary objective. Imagine there's like maybe a couple of regular generators, like what we usually mess with. Maybe there's like one of these blood ones. Maybe some gens where you have to go and find like a highlighted part on the map and bring it in, you know? I know some people think that this is like extra busy work, but I think in terms of a secondary objective, it could help shake things up. You know, you have to move around. It's not just sitting stationary. That's my biggest issue with generators, is that they're just so stationary, and the entire goal of slamming them out as fast as possible has been optimized to a point that I would argue that something like a blood generator here, it's a good idea. And I started thinking about different ways you could implement this in the regular mode, or several different types of them. You know, I started thinking about that while I was messing with these blood gens, so I think they're a pretty solid start. However, here's where we get to the negative parts. The implementation of these into this mode is very sketchy. First of all, there are 4 of them, which that's way too many. These generators move along much faster than other generators, even with the travel time, and they can only be dry kicked by the killer. On the flip side, you know, survivor gen speed perks also don't affect these, but that's not only far less impactful, but it just wouldn't really be that much of an issue if these gens accounted for a smaller percentage of available generators. 4 is just quite simply too many. You can do 1 reg and then 4 of these and you get out the match. Because of the amount of them in this mode, that's just kind of a disaster. It creates a vicious cycle where generators can fly by, killers can't really interact with them too much, and so they have to turn to more oppressive ways to create pressure, which causes survivors to, of course, react poorly, and the wheel keeps turning. This actually brings me to the killer end of Bloodmoon 2025. You remember last year, the blood zones, you get like extra lunge, everybody was swimming in more BP, survivors I think got like haste or something, and they got little bonuses in the blood zones. It was simple but effective. It was free, it was open, it was kind of fun. It was a good addition to the mechanics that already exist in the game. In Bloodmoon 2025, there is none of this. There is basically no incentive, in fact, to play killer outside of smashing your challenges and getting the fuck out of there. Now, I will throw out there, Behavior has said that they are going to be looking at this situation to see if there's something that they can add for killers to mess with. So we'll see where we're at here in a little while. I might end up making another video saying huge W, Behavior, who knows. But right now, blood generators are not only not affected by regression perks, which I'm fine with, but also any perk that is related to generator completion isn't affected by them either, which means that Fire Up, Coup de Grace, Bitter Murmur, anything that activates when survivors progress their objective, they give you a little something, they don't work. The real kicker is that this isn't just limited to perks. Killer powers, such as Pig's Reverse Bear Traps, Houndmaster's Dog Search, Freddy's Generator Teleports, those don't work either. Now, you might be thinking, well, if Behavior is going to take all of this stuff away from killers, half of their most fun perks like Coup de Grace, the fact that Pig's Bear Traps need a generator to be completed to activate, clearly they would, you know, give an extra mechanic for killer players to interact with, right? To have fun with during the very special and much anticipated Bloodpoint Super Celebration event? No. There is just literally a new survivor mechanic, and killers don't even really have anything worthwhile to mess with. They can kick the cans over if survivors drop them. They can dry kick the blood generators for 5% that can be undone even faster than a regular gen. I, personally, I'm not really that worried about regression. Behavior has specifically said, like I said earlier, that they would look into adding new ways for killers to regress them. And that'll be all well and dandy, but I'm more worried about interaction. If I were interacting with something fun and impactful, I could see it. But as it stands right now, there's just nothing new to the table for killers to fuck with in Bloodmoon 2025, and that's pretty much just flat out it, sadly. I'm on record saying that I think a similar thing about 2v8, but from the opposite end. 2v8 has a lot of reason for killers to play, primarily being able to queue up with your friend. But survivor gameplay in 2v8, if you ask me, feels like an afterthought. The Bloodmoon event right now is even worse about that. Survivors have something new and innovative to mess with that they've never had in the game before, and killer is basically there as a stand-in to experience the survivor objective being completed without their input, I guess. It's honestly just kind of sad, because I really do feel like this event could have been something special if both sides had been cooked up. The appetizers came out cooked. All of the event skins look amazing. The aesthetic is down pat. I'd even say that the survivor side came out at least warmed up in the microwave. Pretty good. You know, maybe you could add a little bit more, go a little bit further, but for a first draft, pretty sick. The killer's food came out raw and literally still in the package after being dropped on the floor. So much gameplay was actually, if anything, taken away from the killer. It would be one thing if nothing had been added too, but to take away from the base kit of 3 killers? Come on, Behavior. How were you thinking that killer powers should be knocked out by this? What if I wanted to play Pig in the Bloodmoon event? By the way, I did. I wanted to try out Pig's new 24-meter terror radius, or old 24-meter terror radius in the Bloodmoon event. But, I mean, I'll just be doing that in the regular mode, sadly, because there's no reason to play Pig right now in Bloodmoon. Why would I do that? So at the very least, I just kind of wish that Behavior would add the ability for killer powers to interact with these generators. At the very least, when they're completed, you know, maybe Pig traps could come on or something. I don't know. All in all, I just don't think this Blood Moon event is going to be worth doing without changes, you know, unless you just want to get the challenges, which, hey, again, the skins look great, so it's worth doing the challenges, but like after you're done with that, just move on, right? I realize that it may be too late to add completely new mechanics in, or even toss in last year's fun little blood zones, but as it stands currently, I think queues are honestly going to end up dwindling down for it pretty quickly once people have got what they came in there for. If you're loading up as Survivor for this, I would probably expect to be waiting, because unfortunately, only one side has a real draw to the mode right now. That's really all I have to add about it though. Sorry if this video comes off as a little negative, but I really did feel pretty strongly that this event is lacking in quality in a way that I think is significant, unfortunately. GG's, well played, good luck in your next, and thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one.